Hi guys, it's Blackie.
Yeah, Bear.
And this is always number 17. First of all, we'd like to say a heartfelt thank you to the individual that sent us the package. He sent us a couple of the folding chow kit, mess kit for eating utensils. These are pretty neat little kits. Got a folding fork, a folding knife, and of course all important folding spoon, all fitting in this little set. And it's a pretty nice, neat little set. So we greatly appreciate it, and we will put these to use in the future. So thank you very much.
Definitely thank you. Completely unexpected.
So, Bear has finally got him a camera. And this is Betty. Say hello to Betty, everybody. She's an Australian Shepherd that stays out here at the farm, and she's just loving attention today. So she's gonna be in and out of the picture. Just be ready. So you finally got your camera.
Finally got the camera.
And we're starting to do stuff. Now, what name did you decide to do finally for your channel?
Well, I'm leaning toward Bear's Old Ways.
Bear's Old Ways. Okay, we'll go with that for a working title. You can always change later. You want to have it set up by the end of November.
Yes.
So we got about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So just plan somewhere around Thanksgiving. We'll say when it'll go live. So we've got him set up where he's got his own camera, his own tripod. Now we're doing all the logistics of set it up and get all your connections, and you understand. It's not going to be easy, but so we'll get it set up. So what's the first thing you want to talk about on this new channel? What's your first project you got in mind?
Well, I mean, there's just a flood of things that I could do. I was thinking that that by then it'll be cool and I could get my blacksmithing stuff out and work on some blacksmithing projects that I've been wanting to get done. Perhaps that chuck box.
Build a chuck box.
Build a chuck
I
box.
still got to show you that picture that someone in another group that I'm in published, and it was actually a range box. But it was like a square box, and half of the top, not the whole top, folds off toward the back.
Right.
Okay, boot. And that makes a square there that would just be perfect for setting a coal and stove in. And then you can come in from the top, and you've got slide out drawers for the small stuff, but your big pots and stuff would be like over that wall in there. So you just sit on the tailgate of a pickup and be the perfect. You just reach back here and get what you need.
Right.
And so I'm going to show you that design. I thought that would be a pretty cool little design.
I've been toying with a couple of just traditional designs, and it's a lot of fun. And remember, we've said before, these are not, there is no ironclad design for a chuck box. It's your design. Right now I'm looking at a traditional box that has the folding front that makes the work surface. I'm kind of leaning in that direction because I'm most familiar with that design. I've been watching, I believe it's Ingles Coat Shop on YouTube, and he just completely renovated a chuck wagon, like from the iron wheels up. And I've been paying lots of attention to his chuck box designs. I've been looking at what's his name, the cook.
Ken Rollins?
Yeah, Ken Rollins. I've been watching Ken Rollins for several years now, and have been watching his chuck box particularly hard the last 3 or 4 months. And you know, these guys are a library unto themselves, and give them both shout outs. They are masters of their trade.
Well, now, you were telling me the other day you cooked pumpkin the other night.
Yeah.
And your daughter liked it.
All of them liked it.
And we had talked about you were going to talk about trying to make some pumpkin pickles and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah. I do want to throw a little cooking in there too, because a lot of the viewers, a lot of y'all seem to be very interested in cooking.
I'm getting quite a few people saying, when you gonna get back to doing cooking videos, Blackie?
Yeah.
So I need to do that as well.
If y'all will go back and think, when we did Old Wayz 6, it was the end of July, the 1st of August, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, it was 95 degrees with 100% humidity.
It's just no fun to be around a heat source.
We like to have died.
Yeah.
But it was fun, don't get me wrong, we enjoyed doing it, and we'll do it again.
But you notice how we had the fire way over there, and we'd go back and forth to get the biscuits, and you'd walk up, and it was like you walked into a sauna. The sweat would just boil out on you, and you're sitting there trying to do something minor, and you can't hardly see for sweat running in your eyes. So,
I mean, that's the truth. If you'll go back and rewatch 6, we used up most of a roll of paper towels just wiping sweat.
wiping sweat. I went through a full canteen of water, and you did too, in about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Just sitting there sweating.
I had a 32-ounce cup, and I had this. This goes with me everywhere. And I drained both of them, totally.
Yeah. Well, now, touching on the pumpkin pickles, what it was, guys, is it was a way to use another resource. And I can remember when I was a small boy and going to the church, and they had watermelon for us, and you'd have your, slice of watermelon. And when you got done with it, you didn't throw the rind away. The lady was collecting the rind, and then she would clean it, like slice it, all the part had been touched, leaving just the rind. And then that was cubed up and pickled
Yeah.
to make watermelon pickles. And so it'd be thin humps of, they'd slice it fairly thin like you do a pickle. And it tasted kind of like a pickle.
When I was a kid, I spent a lot of my time up in western North Carolina, up around Rabun Gap, Georgia, and Highlands, North Carolina, that general area of the world. I had some kinfolk that lived up there, and up into Virginia, southwestern Virginia. I have kinfolk that lived just a few miles from Mabry Mill, if y'all are familiar with that area. And we would spend a couple of weeks in the summertime just making that little pilgrimage up and down. And one of the things I remember the most is pumpkin pickles. Mm-hmm. And they were cut into slabs and stuffed in the jar, and then the pickling compound was put in on it. And they were delicious. I mean, you could sit there and you could eat an entire jar and not even realize it till it was gone. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm trying to recapture part of my youth.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing about this entire series is it being the old ways.
Yeah.
It's things that's been forgotten. Something that, a fact I found out a year or two ago that kind of shocked me was today there are 17 kinds of apples.
Yeah.
Now you would think in our modern society in genetic engineering and everything else that, wow, we should just have diversity, diversity, diversity. There are 17 kinds of apples. In 1850 there were 7,000
Yeah.
recognized different kinds of apples, and these were good for putting into other foods. These were good for baking. These were good for eating raw. These were good for stewing. These were good to make sauces out of, juices out of. 7,000 kinds. But as we standardized in the early 1900s down to just certain breeds that they would promote,
Yeah.
we let the rest go, and they're gone.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. Mm-hmm. And it was not uncommon to have an orchard, a 2 or 3 acre orchard with 8 or 9 or 10 different kinds of trees in it.
Yeah.
Pickling.
Same thing with us down here, different kinds of pecan trees.
Yeah. Yeah. Pickling, as in the case of the pumpkin or the watermelon, mm-hmm. was a way of preserving, because you planted your crops in the spring and you grew them through the summer and you harvested. You had a little kitchen garden. You actually had 2 gardens. You had a kitchen garden next to your cookhouse, and houses back then were separate from the cooking house.
Because it was so hot.
that and the fire danger.
Yeah.
The fire danger, you had a separate kitchen house, cookhouse. But anyway, you had a kitchen garden and you had a main garden, and the main garden went into the cellar. And that's what got you from right after harvest back around to planting. What you ate in your kitchen garden is where you saved your seeds to plant the next spring. And a lot of that knowledge, and you know, I've been told that I am full of the most useless of information. Daddy used to want to get me on Jeopardy so bad that he could taste it. But anyway, that having been said, if you'll look around you, and we've said it 36 times since Always One, we are coming into, all the signs are there, naturally and man-made. We're looking at cold weather harbingers. We were talking about one on the way down here, about how the Yopon is fruiting early.
They make this bright red berry.
Bright red.
And whenever I was a kid, we always called it the Christmas berries because they normally came out at the end of November, early December. That's when you'd see it. So usually at Christmas time, there was these red berries everywhere in the woods.
Right.
And it's bright green with red berries, looks Christmassy. And he's got one in his yard right now. It's fully red and developed right now. Now, true, we're just a few days away from November.
Right.
But it's a month early, which when we were kids, we were told that was a harbinger of severely cold weather.
Right.
Was if it blooms early, that means that they know something's coming and they've got to bloom early.
You can tell there are certain animals that you see that move. I work at night, and I have noticed that back, 3-4 months ago, you didn't see any deer moving at night. Now you see 6, 8, 9, 10 moving. They're storing food. They're storing fat for a purpose. I have seen more coons in the last 2 months than I've seen in the last year and a half.
We've had a very big acorn crop this
Yeah.
year, but they're eating more than usual.
Yes, they're eating just as much as they can get a hold of.
I pointed it out to Bear back, early September. We were down there, and I pointed out how many acorns were hanging on that tree. It was just laden and unusually big amount of acorn. And we go down there now, and the ground's just picked clean. They're eating hard when they shouldn't. The weather's been relatively mild. We just had this cold snap that brought us down to 4 or 5 days of 30-degree nights, which was unusual, and now we've oscillated back up to where right now it's probably 82 degrees out here. So they're not being stressed by the weather, and yet they're eating like it's dead of winter. They got to put the fat on now. So
yeah, they're eating like there's not going to be a tomorrow, which is scary.
Could very well be. But back to
Here's one other thing.
Yeah.
If you've been paying attention, and there are all kinds of threats. Threat might be a little harsh, but there's all kinds of predictions about fuel costs doubling, about
heating costs doubling.
Yeah, the cost of heating your house doubling. And, now's the time, like we keep saying, Noah built the ark before it started raining.
Yeah, you got to be prepared.
They're talking about supply shortages even worse during the first quarter of next year, of 2023. You just absolutely don't take it lightly. I mean, if you got 24 people telling you that this little white thing with a yellow beak and a wattle's a duck, you might want to look at it.
I had a young couple talking the other day that they'd got a little windfall, a little extra money. And they asked me what did I suggest they do with it. And I said, honestly, go down to someplace and get you one of those small chest freezers. Go around now and get those really good deals where you get the big multi-bag of mixed vegetables and peas and corn and the big bag, you know, that $2 for the big bag. Buy a couple of the big mayonnaise and ketchups, leave them sealed up, mustard, that type deal. And when you can afford it, buy up some meat and put it up. Educate yourself and put it in there, because what they've already admitted, a shortage of a hamburger and cow that's going to be coming after January, because the fact that during COVID they sold off so much of that livestock.
Or just euthanized it.
Yeah, because the demand had dropped and they didn't want to feed it, so they euthanized it. Well, those are the animals that would be coming into the market in January this year. And so one of the big economists was talking the other night. He says he's expecting a pound of hamburger to be $40 a pound. I'm thinking that's excessive and he's overdoing it.
Yeah.
He probably has got investments somewhere in the beef industry. But still, it would not hurt anything just to have a small chest freezer like that.
No.
Chest freezers are better because they're like an ice chest, they're a bucket. They hold the cold longer, and so if the power goes out, they will stay frozen a day or so if you don't open the lid.
Yeah, if you'll notice, when you open up your refrigerator, your feet get cold.
That's all the cold fell out.
It's cold sliding out.
It sinks.
Yeah, in a deep freeze, a chest freezer, you don't have that. It's like he says, it's a cold bucket. And it will hold the temperature, you know, fairly constantly for several days.
Mm-hmm. And one of those solar powered cubes, like I've got, like that Blue Eddy, you get a solar power to go with that, so you can afford to keep that frozen. You plug the thing up, all it's got to do is run an hour or two to keep it cold. When you unplug it, you've got a full 24 hours. If you don't open the lid, it'll stay frozen.
Yeah.
So now, especially in the winter, whenever everything's cold and you may not have that much heat going on in the house.
Something also that would be a good idea, if you already have a generator, get you some extra gasoline.
Yeah.
And get you a little bottle of Stay-Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in there. It's a ½ an ounce to 5 gallons. Ask me how I know.
Stay-Bill, you can find it in your automotive section at Walmart or whatever, and it's
any
where
parts house.
If you've got a boat that you're going to put up, and we'll touch on that in a minute, or some other piece of equipment, you put it with the gas to keep it from basically evaporating and turning to lacquer and causing you problems.
It won't separate into your fuel here and your water at the bottom.
Yeah.
The thing that carries gasoline is actually water. Okay.
The ethanol is more water than it is anything
else. The water will separate and move to the bottom because it's heavier. If you'll take this ½ ounce of Stay-Bill, check the bottle. Don't trust my number. I'm working off my memory. But take it and put it in your can before you put the gas in, and then put the gas in on top of it. It will mix, and it will take that can from lasting, 30 days before it starts to separate to 6 or 8 months before it starts to separate.
Right now we're at the end of grass cutting.
Yes.
So let me pass on some wisdom to you that we've learned down here in the South the hard way. We cannot afford to go buy a new lawnmower every year, okay? You're done, this is probably going to be the end of it, okay? What you do is you let your gas tank run dry. You let the lawnmower run till it runs empty, okay? That will drain every bit of the gas out of it. After it's drained out, you want to take the carburetor cleaner, spray down into the opening, take the breather off where you can look down at the carburetor baffle, open it up, give it a good spray and wet it down, put the lid back on, check the oil in it, put it up. In the spring, when you go to fire it back up, the first thing you're going to do is take the breather off, hit it with carburetor cleaner, pour just a little bit of gas, like the cap off of a soda worth of raw gas down the carburetor, put the lid back on it, pull the spark plug wire off so it can't crank, and just pull the handle 2 or 3 times to circulate so it sucks air through there, okay? Now fill up your gas tank with full gas. Click the thing back on and it'll 9 times out of 10 fire right up. But people put the lawnmower up and they left gas in it. It separates, like he's talking about, and it lacquers up if it evaporates out because you got it in a warm garage or something. Well, in the spring, whenever you go to put gas in it, the little valves and stuff are stuck in place.
Yeah.
And so we learned how to do that. Chainsaws, same way. If you're not somebody that uses a chainsaw every day, I come out, I use it, all right, I'm done with it. You pour the gas out of the tank. If you want to save that gas, you fire it up and you let it run dry. And then you set it aside. You do the same thing. Weed eaters, same thing. It's lacquering up. But if you'll get the gas out of it, or if you'll put stable into the gas you're going to leave in it, either one of those will work.
Yeah.
Because down here, we stop cutting grass sometimes in December, and then start cutting grass in March. So, you know, you're talking about 2-3 months most, but it will sit up, and everybody, at the beginning of the year, when I was a kid, I'd take my bicycle and I'd ride around and have all them lawnmowers sitting out by the road because I couldn't crank them.
Yeah.
And I'd hook that sucker to the back of that bicycle and I'd bring it home. And I would hit it with a carburetor cleaner and soak the snot out of it and let those little valves and stuff come loose, dissolve that lacquer. Put gas in it and I'd fire it up and take the 4 or 5 bolts off the top of the Briggs and Stratton, pull it off, take a wire brush and take off all the carbon deposits. The engine got weaker and weaker over time. It was carbon deposit, so it's making the compression stroke shorter and shorter. And I'd open it back up, put a brand new 50-cent seal on that sucker, torque it back down, fire it up, it ran like a new lawnmower. I'd sharpen up the blade, put a little rattle can on it and put it by the road at $25. Bingo. I was a 12-year-old kid and I had my own money.
Probably the same folks that you got it from bought it back.
I sold the same lawnmower to the same guy 4 years in a row. Because I'd come by and say, can I have it? And he'd say, yes, it's wore out, it don't work. And he'd drive by a week later and he'd be sitting out in front of my place with a $25 sign on it. He'd walk up there and yank the cord and think it'd fire right up, run like a brand new motor. He'd just dig out $25 and hand it to me. It was $50 to take it to have it rebuilt, $25 for me to rebuild it. So, but things like that. I mean, you look around and you find it's ways to do it, preserve it. Today you've got the advantage, like I'm talking about, these power cells, like that Blue Eddy I got. That's $500. They're not cheap. But what it gives you is the ability to have the ability to run a refrigerator, run a deep freeze when the power's out, or whatever.
Down here, generators are almost mandatory because of hurricanes. I know we harp on hurricanes a lot, but generators are almost mandatory. There's lots of inexpensive ones available, and they're good generators. If things get really bad with rolling blackouts, I don't know how long a rolling blackout could last, but I know how to start my generator.
Well, this year or last year in Texas?
It was the polar vortex.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just moved in and sat there in Texas, and
About 2 weeks.
The grid couldn't handle it.
No.
And so everybody is needing to run heaters constantly because most of your apartments and stuff like that are not well insulated.
And they're all electric.
And that's one of the reasons they're not that well insulated.
Yeah.
The hot water heater's electric, so you can't even take a hot shower.
That's why I heat my house with gas, because my heater in my bedroom, the pipe that runs out of it goes through a series of pipes and goes straight into the reserve in the ground. That's the way that natural gas works. And my water heater is natural gas. My stove in my kitchen is natural gas. My heaters in all my bedrooms are natural gas.
But you're living in one of these small old towns like I'm in, and
Right.
when I was a boy, down there in the old cotton mill village, everybody had gas heat.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
there's a reason why they did.
the city had come in and they wanted you to quit using your fireplaces
Right,
and your coal stoves because the smoke was so bad. And so they wanted you, so the city came in and put in gas, and if you would block off your chimney, they would hook your gas up for free.
Yeah.
You know, and so they hooked it up, and so you had gas heat, which was a freestanding gas heater. They just literally drilled a hole in the floor,
Yes.
and this device sat there that was a heater, and it hooked to it, and you had a pilot light, and you turned it up or down, and we had 3 in that house, only ever ran one.
yeah, I've got a dinosaur in my hallway.
It worked.
I can heat 2/3 of my house with that one heater. It's probably that wide and probably stands about that high off the table. You know, the table being the floor, probably stands about that high, and it's about 18 inches thick.
Yeah.
It's like firing up an old locomotive. But the thing, because, you know, when you fire up a locomotive, it sounds like they're coming to life, because as the metal warms up, they will actually bend
And moan and
yes,
groan.
they'll moan and groan, and sort of like they're coming to life, getting the kinks out.
Yep.
You know, old steam locomotives are fascinating, but that's always 19.
Yeah.
We'll do 18 something else. We'll do locomotives.
Well,
But anyway,
I tell you what happened with ours. We had that, and outside you had the gas meter,
yeah,
and then up on top of it you had the breather.
yep,
Well, little Blackie didn't understand, and so when I was like 6 years old, I'd got around there and I had figured out that up on top of that breather, the thing come up and there was a cap that looked about like a coin and had a big slot in it. Well, I had stuck like a dime or something in there, or a quarter or whatever, and unscrewed it, and you'd look down and what it is it's an adjustment valve. But I didn't know. I left it open. Well, down here quite often our cold weather is preceded by rain. And so it rained, the water got into that thing, and then it froze. Well, that kind of smothered the air because it's putting pressure down on that diaphragm, see? So it smothered air. So my grandmother gets up next morning, it's all of about 18 degrees in the house, and she goes in there and she turns up the heat, and the flame would only come up about 1/8 of an inch, wide open. That's all it would do. Well, this happened 2 or 3 times. She couldn't figure out what was wrong with it, and they'd call the gas company, and nobody ever made it over in time, and it would clear itself up, you know. And she thought it was a clog in the line or something. Well, one particular cold morning, Granny got up and went in there, and she did that, and again the flames wouldn't come because there's a block of ice out there. And she called, and by luck, she got this young man that was about to walk out the door, and he wasn't far away. And so he came over for the gas company. He went out there and looked at it, and he saw that cap was off. Meanwhile, my grandmother had backed up to that heater and pulled her dress up for her bare legs to try to catch a little heat off of that, coming off of that little bitty heater. I mean, this room's 18 degrees. You only got about 4 or 5 feet of heat around that heater, and I'm sitting there in a little chair right in front of it. Granny's right in front of that man, came out there, and he went pop, pop, whoo, and suddenly,
blowtorch.
that heater went whoosh, and she had a big thing that scorched Granny's backside. It didn't set her on fire, but I'll never forget that.
It was blistered.
Oh, it was like a firecracker went off. Pow! And it went to full power, and the flames were going up like that. Oh, I remember Granny squealing and running around the fan because her butt was hot. Oh, it was on later
We had
that one
interesting
happened.
childhoods.
Oh yeah, fun
But,
with the gas heater.
You know, I was talking about that. My fail-safe, though, is I have 3 working fireplaces that they're closed now, but in about 10 minutes I can have them going. That's not an issue. Be ready. We would rather y'all have all of your resources in place You know, put up bread in the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Put up meat, the meat that you've already got in the freezer now. Take it out and can it.
Take the ice cube trays and crack
Yeah.
an egg into each one and freeze it.
There you
And
go.
you got cubed eggs,
There you go.
you know.
You can, and you can also go ahead and whip them up and pour them into like a milk jug. cut the lid off of it so you still have the handle. Stick it in there. That works too as a container.
I've seen them take the silicone muffin tin
Yeah.
and crack like 2 eggs in each.
Yeah.
Go ahead and put salt and pepper in it even. And then for tomorrow's breakfast, they just pulled it out of the freezer, stuck it into a bowl and stuck it in the refrigerator. When they got up in the morning, it thawed out.
That's the key. Okay. Don't put a frozen egg into a hot skillet.
No, you gotta thaw it out.
Yeah, it has ice in it, and that water's gonna snap, crackle, and pop.
Yeah, it'll
And
spit.
if you got oil in there with it, or butter, or your leftover bacon grease from the bacon you just cooked,
And
it's gonna throw it all back on you.
That's it. Do not fry the bacon and then drop that frozen egg into the bacon.
No.
Ask me how I know that, because I was in the bedroom shaving whenever I heard the wife squeal one time after I'd showed her the trick on freezing eggs. And she was a doctor's daughter. Her family had been poor, but she'd never come up that way, and I'd come up poor. So when we got together, I had always froze eggs, put up bread, all this stuff, and so I was trying to kind of show her, and so she just pulled one of them frozen eggs out and set it in it. And it was like a grease fire. Suddenly there's grease flying everywhere, and I got in there in time to throw a lid over the top of it. Go get one of those round pizza tins. Put it in the kitchen, not next to the stove, over here, somewhere in the kitchen, because there's very few pots you've got that are bigger than a pizza thing. And with that, I can smother any fire on that stove.
Pizza stones do good too.
Yeah, but they're heavy. I want something I can just grab and put up there in a hurry, because there's always a dish towel hanging on the front of the stove.
Right.
So if it flares up, I've got an awning over the top of it, and I made sure there's nothing instantly flammable right here.
Yes.
So that's going to buy a little bit of time. So if I have a grease flare or whatever, the wife's being trained, you grab it, you slap it on top, you take the dish towel and you smother it.
Yes.
And the fire extinguisher is right there at the corner of the dining room.
Yes.
I had a neighbor come over one time, not long after we got there, and mounted to the wall in the dining room is one of them big industrial fire extinguishers. He said, "Oh God, why did you do that?" I said, "Because life happens." Well, I would have hit it in a counter, or I'd have hit it. Yeah, you would. And you've got 60 seconds before this is going to be out of hand. You're going to tell me I'm going to then try to remember where I hit it. No, it's right there, honey.
Pull the pin, pop it, and go.
Pull, pop, fire. You know, that was one of our first classes. And that's something else, guys. If you've got emergency equipment, like a fire extinguisher, make sure every person that lives there has a working knowledge of how this works.
Everybody above the age of 10.
Should know how this and when to use it. It's important, okay? And so, for example, you never put water on any fire in the kitchen,
No.
period. It's not a vocabulary. That's the reason there's an ABC fire extinguisher right there.
Right. If
Yeah.
you pour water into a skillet that just flamed
You
off,
just made it worse.
all that water, the momentum of the water going in will pick the fire up and put it over here on the wall, which you didn't want.
You just slung napalm on everything.
Yeah.
So make sure of that. And what I did was, you know, most fire extinguishers have to be recharged after a given amount of time. And most fire departments would recharge them. Free. And so I had one that was at the age. And so I took the wife and I said, "We're having a fire extinguisher class." And I went out back and I started the fire, got it going. And then I told her, "You're going to use it." And we'd gone through dry run over and over and over again, how to do it. And then I finally said, "Okay." And I walked up and I dashed something that's going to flare up. You know, let's say flared up. I said, "Grab it and go, honey." And she, like a trooper, she went up, she pulled the pin, she got it aimed, she aimed at the base of it, she hit the thing, and she held the can still and just moved the hose back and forth and walked up start at the base and come up, and she put it out. Then we went down to the fire department, we got it refilled. You know, you will have a working knowledge of every gun in this house, of every emergency bit of equipment in this house.
Right. You know, we we went down a bit of a rabbit trail, but go ahead now, like the couple he was advising the other day, go out now and buy that extra pack of toilet paper.
Yeah.
Buy that extra pack or packs of paper towels. If you prefer dish towels, buy you an extra bundle of dish towels. You might want to check out your water purification systems. If the grid goes down for whatever reason, like you were saying, the Texas got overloaded.
Right.
If the grid goes down, your water pumps run off of electricity.
Look around, if you ain't got a lot of money, look around the Goodwills. A lot of time you're gonna find those Brita water pitchers and stuff in there, just replace the cartridge.
Yeah.
Because they tell you gotta boil your water. That Brita will clean it up.
Yeah.
You know, they're just not gonna tell you to go buy that. And so having one of those in your set,
Yeah.
so that, cause you hear it all the time, when we hear all these natural disasters, and they issue, you gotta boil your water.
Boil water.
Boil water, because it means it's got contaminated. Well, a Brita will take that out, you know, etc. And so you can quickly and easily process water. You gotta have water, you gotta have some way to light and heat, and you gotta have some way to sleep and take care of yourself. You know, it wouldn't hurt to make sure you got a full tank of gas, because when the election is over, I fully expect the price of gas to go through the roof all at once.
It's a possibility.
I mean, not trying to do politics, guys, just being practical and being real, and I fully expect the price of gas to just shoot out of sight.
Normally in the winter, it does rise, in all fairness, and November is very close to the start of winter. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a possibility. It's you know, just a related possibility. And another thing you might consider is don't let your vehicle get below half a tank. Now there is a problem with running down to a half and putting new gas in it. Drop you some Sta-Bil in there. When you fill it up, let it mix up. It will let the old gas and the new gas mix up well, and there won't be any issues there, any separation issues.
You know what I do as a redneck? And since my old black truck, it sits a lot now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make sure every week that truck gets run, at least do a little trip on it or whatever.
Yeah.
And since I know that gas can separate, when I get in it, I'm on a relatively deserted little bitty street. I'll get going about 25 miles an hour, and I'll pump the brakes and go whop, whop, and I'm sloshing the gas tank
Yeah.
to constantly give it some surgitation. I do go around the block doing a little humping like that a little bit. And I had the neighbor come up one time and said, "Did the brakes on that truck going out or something?" I said, "Well, it's old. You know, what I'm doing is I'm getting going about 5 miles an hour and just pumping the brakes, and I'm making it slosh. If I don't, and I do put Sta-Bil in it occasionally, but if I don't, it will separate, and then you'll be starting to go, and suddenly it'll be and that's where water is being sucked into your injectors. And if water goes to an injector, water is thicker than gasoline, and it's not easily blown through the injector, so you kind of plug off the injector, and so suddenly that cylinder don't run. Now, once the car is running 50-something miles an hour, it's got a strong enough suction then that you can't burn the water out of it, so to speak. But again, just rock it a little bit. I'm a redneck. I do the going down the road.
Everything that you've got parked in your driveway needs to be run at least 30 minutes a week.
Yeah, just crank up.
I would recommend 30 minutes a week at least.
Use it to go to work one day, go get a burger, whatever.
Yeah.
Which it ain't a bad thing if all your neighbors think you're crazy. They kind of leave you alone. And they don't come snooping around so much because, you know, he is crazy. Well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that reputation.
It does help. You know, side war, so to speak. Don't go mess with him. He's crazy. Well, yeah.
We, you know, I guess this could be called the winterization issue of old Wayz.
Do you put plastic over your windows?
Normally, no, but I have in the past. Yeah, if I've had some issues with the window, yeah, I'll put plastic over them. My windows are so high off the ground.
Yeah.
One side of my house is, the floor is like 3.5 feet off the ground, and just to get a ladder up there is problematic. I've got one that'll reach, but yeah, to answer your question, not normally, but this winter I think I will.
We had a sliding patio door in our house, in the bedroom, and it was on the north side.
Right.
So that nice big thick plate glass is cold rock. And so my wife, this has been her house before we got married, and she'd always complained it was one of the coldest bedrooms. One, the north wind's blowing against that glass. Two, it's by convection directly. So I went down to Lowe's and got that big sheets of styrofoam. It's got silver on one side and styrofoam on the other, and just made two of them that form fit in there. For the winter, you can just knock it out of the way if you got to go out for an emergency or something. But to be insulation on that glass and stop the transfer. And suddenly that was the hottest room in the house. And she was going, "My God, what did you do?" I said, "Stop the heat loss." You know.
Yeah, glass is a heat sucker.
Oh, yeah. And so winterizing your home, go around and find the leaks. Now, this is something else, for those of you that may have added a fireplace or added whatever. This is something that a lot of people don't get and you need to understand. My fireplace in my house, immediately in front of the fire area, there's an air vent that goes to the outside of the house. That sucks outside air in directly for the fireplace, okay? Just like water, if you pull it out this way, it's got to suck that way, see? If you have, my good friend Dan Lutz, he had a pellet stove for heating his house. He didn't run a separate air for it. Well, it's running and it's going to, heat rises, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
So he leaked air around every door, every window, every faucet, every opening in that house.
Right.
Run a separate air channel, just a 3-inch air pipe to the stove. It had a provision for that. Suddenly it wasn't sucking air in every window, every room and everything, and it had all the oxygen it needed to run, and it radiated heat, and his house got a whole lot warmer in a hurry by doing that. So if you've got a furnace, if you've got whatever, there's a reason it's got an air pipe coming into it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I have a north-facing door that loves to let wind come underneath it and around it, and I'm going to winterize my door.
Yeah, all you got to do is just take that piece of styrofoam, that silver, decorate the dang thing, spray paint it, whatever. If it's not a door you go in and out of every day, stand it up in the door frame, make it snug, and it's going to do 90%. And if a fire happens, open the door and knock it out of the way. But it acts as insulation. Now you can go around, of course, and put foil, and that's one of the reasons people back in our day, remember there was in winter they had foil covered doors.
Right.
Well, it was for decoration. No, it also sealed up the door too, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
And so I can remember a lot of people would get the foil wraps that they had in for Christmas time, and you'd see a lot of doors would keep them on it until April, because it stopped the cold wind coming around the door. Little extra insulation never hurt. Take you, the old trick was take a birthday candle, and we'd slowly go around and you'd see where the wind's coming in, and you'd go to dancing.
Yeah.
Or wet your hand and just hold it up and you'll feel cold air.
Yeah, digressing. Like I was starting to say a minute ago, going back to freezers, the meat that you've got in your freezer now, take it out and can it.
Or go ahead and eat it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got 50 pounds, it's going to be a big meal. But, you know what you've got. If you want to eat part of it, can the rest of it. Canning is not complicated. You can raw pack it, you can cook it, and then pack it.
An idea, I mentioned it, I think it was a recent one that I talked about, taking the leftover, where you do a marinade for your steaks. You save that, and then I have put my meat in it. I froze that, and I brought it out, thawed it out, and I put the meat in, and I'm gonna make jerky out of it.
Yeah.
I got somebody I used to work with, and every year he would go and empty out his freezer because they had cows, and he would get out the older hunks of steak or whatever. He'd thaw it out, and it may have a touch of freezer burn. It's been in there so long. He'd slice it really thin, soak it, marinate it, and make jerky out of it.
That's a good thing to do.
And then everybody wanted to pay him $10 for a bag of jerky, you know. And so he'd turn around, go into work, and he'd throw one on the table in the middle of the break room. Everybody'd get a taste. Man, where'd you get this from? I made it. How much? $10 for a bag that size? Hell, he'd make $200 cleaning out his freezer.
Yeah. But yeah, we're hoping that we can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, if people are telling you that, you know, there's trying times coming, we would rather you be prepared and not need it than to not be prepared and need it.
Yep. Because whenever X happens,
it happens quickly.
And everybody goes running. Well, what have we seen? Toilet paper. Man, I ain't gonna worry about toilet paper. Good luck finding toilet paper.
Absolutely.
People were buying it up in droves. I mean, having fist fights over it in Walmart on a roll of toilet paper. And I had people contacting me going, "What's natural toilet paper?" And I was having to tell them because they couldn't find any. And said, "I'm gonna have to just get some toilet paper." I'm like, "Okay, make some." Okay, there's better ways to do it, and I gave them some ideas. But you know, you wouldn't have believed that toilet paper would have disappeared. You wouldn't have believed that Twinkies would get hard to find. Only 1 out of 11 companies quit making them, and it caused a national rush.
Yeah. Newspaper makes a pretty good toilet paper.
Well,
don't flush it, but you know, dispose of it in any other way that you can.
Everybody used to keep a Sears and Roebuck catalog in the outhouse.
Oh yeah.
And that's what that was for. And you burned
Last year's
Sears one wasn't no good. And phone books, that's the reason they printed phone books on thin paper.
Yeah.
Was because most people use last year's phone book as toilet paper.
And I'll bet you don't know what the hole in a Sears catalog or a phone book was for. That hole in the upper corner, for those of you old enough to remember, that was for hanging it on a nail in an outhouse.
Exactly what it was for.
That's what that hole was there for.
They expected you to take the old phone book and turn it into toilet paper.
Yes.
That's the reason that you got flour and stuff in colored prints, because they knew you were going to make shirts and dresses out of it.
Right. As recently as our parents' generation, they did that. Our parents are children of the Depression. Mm-hmm. And all of my grandparents, all of our grandparents were true Victorians. Mm-hmm. Okay? They were not, you know, Edwardians. They were all born right at the end of Queen Victoria's reign in England. Mm-hmm. And they were raised by people that grew up during that era. So they were true Victorians. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that I guess that's why we're the way we are.
Yeah.
Because our grandparents grew up in the old way. And our parents grew up first generation during the Depression. And that could very well be, maybe we just come by it naturally.
Mm-hmm. Well, today's generation, they've been raised to, you work a job, you get a paycheck, you buy what you want. Right. Okay. My grandparents' generation was, you grew food, you had some sort of job or skill on the side to make money for the stuff you couldn't grow. Right. And the rest was processing to do it. You were living at home and you only went to town to get supplies.
Yes.
So you didn't go to town every night for dinner, or you didn't go to whatever. And I was seeing a thing on the news just the other day where they're talking about this whatever is now recommending that in new construction that they eliminate the kitchen, because people today have no need to cook for themselves, and so they should eliminate from the architecture a kitchen. You don't need a kitchen.
Eat your bugs and be quiet.
You need a microwave and a small refrigerator, so you need like a shelf and a counter. That's it. And you do not need a kitchen, because the average person does not cook, does not know how to cook anymore, so there's no reason to build a kitchen.
Right.
And that just makes you more dependent on the food.
Right.
And so, but in my grandfather's generation, you were independent, and you just, you know, my granddaddy was a chip carver. He hand carved molding for houses and stuff like that, and he would make 3D reliefs and Last Suppers and whatever for churches, and build pews, whatever. And that made the money to buy the stuff that you couldn't grow or harvest yourself or barter for.
I've seen some of his granddaddy's work. He was good.
He was good.
He was
I mean,
good.
he had real skill with it.
He could make a living doing it.
But I grew up, every house, everybody's you went to was a compound. There was the house, and then there was the boat shed that had all the fishing stuff and the stuff for processing deer and hog and all like that, and the woodworking tools and everything. And then you may have had a smokehouse or something similar, because not everybody was into that. And then there's 4 or 5 different things in their quote yard. Each thing, how many times, and you and I both see this, if you're going down the road and off to the side of somebody's house would be that pole barn thing for cooking sugar cane, for making sugar and sugar cane syrup and etc. That was something they grow to make a little, that was the extra money.
And the farther you get out into the country, the more you saw it.
Yeah, the more you saw it, the more independent they became, you know.
But yeah, it's a good thing to know how to be self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just as guilty as the next guy. We went out and had lunch after church today. But we don't always do that. And we need to know how to cook. We need to know how to, if it's 4 days till payday and you've got enough groceries in the cupboard to get you more or less to payday, stretch them. Know how to stretch them. Know those little corners to trim. Know how to expand. I have amazed my children with just stuff I've dreamed up between the front door and the kitchen stove.
My wife called me the master of the 30-minute meals, because I'd walk in there and I'd just throw open the cap and go, okay, what we got?
Yep,
And
one of those,
one of these,
two of these.
And she'd love it. And then she'd go, what is in this? And I tell her this, and this. Well, what spices? I don't know. I opened up and it smelled good, it tastes good, so I thought I could use a little of this, and I just created.
I have been asked many times, Daddy, whatever that was you cooked the other night, that sure was good. Do it again. I don't remember what I did.
I just grabbed what was
I just
handy.
was grabbing stuff and throwing it toward the stove.
Yeah, grab and go what's handy and substitute what you ain't got.
I learned that trick from Mama.
I remember she was working third shift back then, so she's getting up at 9 o'clock at night because she got to be at work at 11. And she came walking in, and we were pretty poor back then. She come walking in the kitchen and said, God, that smells good. What is it? I said, grilled onions, grilled Vidalia onions, gravy, and fried Spam with mashed potatoes on the side and squash.
Oh, yeah.
And-
Spam, treat.
Oh, she wrinkled her
It's
nose
all-
up. She hates Spam. Well, by God, she liked Spam like that. And after that, it was like, make that again. You know, and you just figure it out. Well, guys, we appreciate, y'all tuning in and listening to us babble a little bit. Again, we're our little suggestion is make an effort. It's probably gonna be needed. So make an effort. Put you some stuff back, do what you can. Ask around friends and stuff, see if you can work a barter or something together. Especially got people that may have stuff. If you've can get a freezer and you've got room for a freezer and you've got the resources where you can stockpile a little bit of stuff, do it. You know.
Yep, you can take a small corner, if you're blessed with a backyard, you can take a small corner of your backyard and dig it up and put a winter garden in. Your root vegetables, your turnips, what else?
Rutabagas, collards, mustard,
yeah.
turnips,
carrots,
garlic.
Yeah. You can take those and put them in there and have a winter garden. And, you know, that's better than going hungry.
And like we've said in earlier videos, if you've got no background, no expertise, there's a book out there, and I can't call the name of it right now, but what it's talking about is you go to the grocery store and you buy a thing of celery. You cut it off and you leave that bottom 1 inch. That can be planted and it'll regrow. You can cut off a hunk of an onion and replant that piece and it'll regrow. A carrot will do it. And there's like 20 or 25 different vegetables and stuff. Get that in some potting soil, take you a 5-gallon bucket and just try it out.
Potatoes that have sat just a little too long and have got those little nubs coming off.
They're ready to plant.
Those are potato eyes. Dig you a hole, stick it in it.
And let it go. And it's one of them things where I don't know what I'm doing. Good. You won't be wasting anything then, right? So if I go, I'm going to take celery and cook with it anyway, why don't I cut this off and replant it and try it? Put it up in a little thing on the windowsill where I can see it. If you screw it up, so what? Fail. Don't be afraid to fail.
No.
Fail. First attempt in learning. I screwed up. Okay. What did you figure out? Well, you need to water it.
What did you do wrong?
Yeah, what did I do wrong?
Don't do it again.
Don't do it again or improve it. Or, I don't know what I did wrong, let's try it again. Because sooner or later I'll figure out what I'm doing wrong.
Yep.
And that's how you learn. And you think, oh, it's going to take forever. It doesn't have to. But at the same time, after you've done this for a little bit, you'll think, God, I'm dumb as opposed to I don't know nothing. And then you're going to meet somebody that knows even less, and suddenly you're an expert.
Absolutely.
Because they don't know. They go to, I'm going to do, no, you can't do that because of this. That's how we learned. You know, we tried. We were willing to try and screw it up, but we wanted to learn. And we got laughed at by the family, you know, that thought we were kooks and weird because we preserved and put stuff up. And yet those are the same ones, whenever they couldn't find any toilet paper, were calling us wanting to know if we had extra toilet paper put up.
And I have seen family members who really would laugh under their, into their shirt sleeve at me for doing things that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I notice that they're doing the same thing.
Doing the same thing.
They wouldn't admit it for all the gold in Fort Knox.
Oh no.
But they're doing it. They saw that it worked, and they're doing it. They're mimicking. My
cousins, that they really embraced the industrial age, the computer age, and they had all the electronic whiz-bang stuff. You know, I've got a cousin that's what he does for a living. He's a computer programmer. Big, expensive house.
And there's nothing wrong with computers or
not
computer
a bit.
Programmers.
Go right ahead. And electric, everything's electric. He's got the money. Knock yourself out, dude. And then we had Katrina come through, and he didn't have power for 16 days.
Oops.
And he didn't have any backup. He didn't have any ability to basically heat anything. He had a microwave. I mean, that was
I guess if you take the wires and rub them together real fast, it'll generate heat.
I'll never forget my family calling me up and asking me would I go down there, and he needs help with something. I'm like, okay. He didn't ain't close or nothing, so I went down there and I said, hey, how you doing? And he's complaining on like this that, everything in his refrigerator is rotten. Why didn't you take it out and put it in an ice chest? He don't own an ice chest. Yeah. Got it. He's all technical.
I'm glad he said that. Put water in a milk jug, put it in your freezer now, Sounds stupid with
Power
fall.
goes out, you
with
get a
fall
whole
coming
cold.
in. Yes, with fall coming in and winter close on behind it, go ahead and freeze you 2 or 3 milk jugs. And, you know, if you have 2 or 3 freezers, put 2 or 3 in each freezer. But, you know, just prepare yourself. It just for the benefit of the doubt, in case it happens. Just be ready. It's
Yeah, if it don't happen, yay, great.
Yeah.
If it does happen,
Oh, it happens.
it happens. So I got stuff. I don't have to panic like everybody else.
Stuff will happen. Okay. And with our history in reenacting, his is much more extensive than mine, but with our combined history of reenacting, I'm reminded of the story that Blackie told in Old Wayz 3, maybe 4, about during Katrina, the folks that were waving bed sheets out of the windows, and the helicopter panned over here, and there's this guy with a bonfire cooking, fat, dumb, and happy.
He had a canvas tent set up. His house, the roof has gone off his house. He's got his canvas tent. He's got a set of firearms. He's sitting there at the chair waving at the camera, and it looks like he's got a big roast on the spit. He's slow roasting it.
Absolutely.
He's going to be fine.
Yeah, and that's extreme in a way, but build yourself toward that extreme. Okay? Now's a really good time to start doing that. You don't have to go out and buy the biggest, greatest thing out there.
Oh, you've been in the river, haven't you? Woo, yeah, you good and wet.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
But, you know, buy you some cast iron and learn how to use it. Buy you a Dutch oven. Learn how to buy you a cast iron Dutch oven and learn how to use it.
Right.
Big boxes have them every day.
Yep, at a decent price.
Learn how to cook over wood. Don't rely on propane tanks. You get into trouble.
Fire skill is something everybody needs anyway.
Oh yeah,
Well, all right, we've probably been over an hour by now.
we're pushing it.
We're pushing it. All right. Enjoyed y'all listening to us, and please leave any comments down there for any future things we're going to do. Next time we're going on a squirrel hunt. So that'll be the next old Wayz we're doing. We're going to go out early one morning with our double barrels and try to put some squirrels in the pot for doing squirrels and rice. So hang on for that. So till next time, I'm Blackie.
And Bear.
Wishing you safe journeys. Y'all have a great day, guys.